What's the difference between polar and nonpolar bonds? First of all, they're both types of covalent bonds. In nonpolar bonds, there is an equal sharing of electrons between atoms. You can see our two atoms up here in our nonpolar example and the electrons being equally shared between them. Polar bonds have an unequal sharing of electrons, and this is going to create charges within the atoms, or around the atoms, within the molecules, somewhere. You can see in our example here two atoms sharing electrons, however, they're being shared unequally. That's because this atom is pulling on the electrons just a little bit more than the other atom. Since these electrons are negatively charged, there's going to be a negative charge more around this area compared with this area. That's because this area is not going to have the electrons as much, which means it's going to be just a little bit more positive. So since these electrons are being shared unequally and they're on this side a little bit more, we're going to have the negative and positive charges. This unequal sharing is due to the electronegativity of the atoms within the bonds or molecules. It's not the only thing that determines polarity, but it's one of the main factors. This is an example of a non-polar covalent bond. You can see the two electrons within the chlorine bond being shared equally between the atoms. So since there's equal sharing, it's non-polar. This is an example of a polar covalent bond. You can see the two electrons being shared between hydrogen and chlorine. However, they're going to be shared unequally. They're going to be found more around the chlorine than they are the hydrogen. So that means there's going to be a negative and positive charge, which means this is a polar covalent bond.